a great friend of mine. I have a large number of friends. I'm terribly lucky to have so many friends who I think are wonderful.
Hold on to your hats, because Prince Philip's private letters have unleashed a shockwave that could shake the royal family's foundations. Camilla Parker Bowles was always the specter in Charles and Diana's marriage, but these newly exposed pages reveal exactly how far her influence reached. From Philip's frank criticisms of Charles to his surprising sympathy for Diana, each secret letter drips with scandal and rumors. Wondering whether the monarchy can weather this storm? Brace yourself. This epic drama is only getting started. Philip's private criticism of Charles's affair. Prince Philip was never one to mince words, and his letters about Charles's affair with Camilla Parker Bowles prove just how firm and protective he could be. The public always saw him as a stern figure, but these personal messages shed light on his deep frustration with Charles's behavior and his sympathy for Diana's struggles. Although he and Diana were quite different in temperament, Philip understood that her marriage had been rocked by hurt and betrayal long before the world ever learned its full extent. From the start, Charles's ongoing contact with Camilla stirred unease and suspicion in Diana. Philip, worried about the negative impact on both the monarchy and family harmony, criticized Charles for putting everything on the line. He saw his son's relationship with Camilla not just as a personal failing, but as a potential threat to the royal family's dignity. In one of his letters, Philip apparently called Charles silly for risking his marriage. While this might sound blunt, it also showed his genuine desire to stop Charles from continuing a course that could hurt everybody involved. At the same time, Philip's letters reveal unexpected compassion toward Diana. He recognized that, despite her enormous popularity, she felt lonely and overwhelmed by public scrutiny. He sympathized with her battle to fit into an institution that thrived on formality and restraint. Philip had himself adapted to a life of royal duty, so he grasped the everyday pressures Diana faced, especially once her husband's emotional loyalty seemed to lie elsewhere. Given Diana's vulnerability, Philip worried greatly about Princes William and Harry, who were caught in the chaos. He believed they needed shelter from the constant media coverage and the pain created by their parents' crumbling relationship. In his letters, he urged Diana to focus on the boys' well-being, while also encouraging Charles to think about the damage this scandal could cause. What makes his criticism so striking is that Philip did not just scold Charles out of principle. He was genuinely torn by the effect Camilla's presence had on Diana and the children. He wanted to uphold tradition and maintain a respectable royal image. Still, he felt compelled to speak out once he realized that Charles's actions threatened the stability of the family he had served so faithfully. Though outsiders may never know every word in those private letters, it is clear that Philip's critique went well beyond stiff disapproval. It was, at heart, a father's urgent plea to protect the monarchy and heal the damage caused by a scandal that rocked the royal family to its core. Empathy for Diana. Princess Diana's entry into the royal family was anything but smooth. She was only 20 years old when she married Prince Charles, and, almost immediately, found herself overwhelmed by royal tradition and the unyielding glare of the media. Although some believed Diana's fairy tale wedding would grant her a blissful life, she struggled under the weight of expectation, loneliness, and emotional distress. Surprisingly, one figure who offered understanding, at least in private, was Prince Philip. Often viewed by the public as a stern, no-nonsense patriarch, Prince Philip showed flashes of genuine care and sympathy toward his daughter-in-law. In letters later revealed to the world, Philip acknowledged that Diana faced intense pressure from every side: the press, public expectations, and her own fragile marriage. He recognized that the monarchy's rigid sense of duty clashed sharply with Diana's more open, empathetic approach, leaving her feeling isolated and misunderstood. These letters were striking because they revealed Philip's criticism of his own son. He believed Charles was silly for risking his marriage and the wider image of the monarchy through his bond with Camilla Parker Bowles. But his concern for Diana did not stop with simple words of disapproval toward Charles. Philip also acknowledged the toll that public scrutiny and a failing marriage took on her mental health. He grasped that Diana felt alone despite her global popularity, and wanted her to know she had an ally, even if his style was more blunt than gentle. Another hallmark of Philip's empathy was his focus on protecting William and Harry. He worried about the emotional circus unfolding around them, stressing that they should be shielded as much as possible from the turmoil. It suggests he didn't see Diana as simply a troublesome royal. Rather, he understood she was a devoted mother trying to keep her children safe in an impossible environment. Though no one can say Prince Philip and Diana agreed on everything, his letters show a man who recognized her suffering and sought to alleviate it in the only ways he knew how. He may have been steeped in royal tradition, but at times he laid that aside to empathize with a young princess trapped in a spotlight that grew ever harsher. For Diana, who often felt unseen, it must have been a relief to discover that, behind Philip's formal demeanor, there was a willingness to understand her fears and her pain. Concern over public image. For the royal family, maintaining a polished public image has always been paramount. Yet, with Prince Philip's private letters coming into the spotlight, letters that supposedly leak the whole damn thing about Camilla, their controlled facade is once again in question. These letters reveal how important optics were to Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth, and the entire monarchy, especially during Charles and Diana's volatile marriage. From the start, Philip worried that Charles's continued bond with Camilla Parker Bowles would tarnish the royal family's name. He felt that affairs, or even the rumor of them, chipped away at the mystique the royals had so carefully built. Every public appearance was orchestrated to remind the world of royal stability and tradition. In Philip's eyes, if Charles's relationship with Camilla became too obvious, or if Diana spoke openly about marital betrayals, the monarchy could face a public relations disaster. Philip's private letters often touched on the importance of boundaries. Even when he criticized Charles for being silly enough to risk everything, he was ultimately worried about the ripple effect on the firm's reputation. For him, this wasn't merely a personal failing, it threatened the crown. The monarchy's glossy surface was only as strong as the public's belief in it, and Philip sensed that Charles's behavior, with Camilla always nearby, was eroding that trust. Diana's openness presented another major challenge. Her authentic, emotional demeanor, and later, her explosive panorama interview, broke the unspoken rule of royal discretion. While the public adored Diana for her candor, it rattled Philip's sense of order. He wrote letters urging her, in essence, to keep certain matters private for the sake of William, Harry, and the monarchy's broader image. Still, he sympathized with her. He knew the press spotlight could be relentless, and he seemed torn between supporting Diana's struggles and upholding a centuries-old system that prized silence and restraint. Camilla, always in the background, transformed from a hush-hush friend of Charles to a woman many blamed for the unraveling of the fairy tale. For Philip, her presence threatened not only Diana, but the monarchy itself. In a world where newspapers sold shocking headlines of heartbreak and betrayal, every rumor fed the public's appetite. The letters suggest Philip recognized how quickly public goodwill could vanish once scandal took center stage. Through it all, Philip's overriding concern was to keep the monarchy's image intact, something he believed was vital for its survival. Yet, these newly revealed letters highlight just how fragile that image could be when real emotions, hidden relationships, and a fiendishly curious media converged in one royal storm. Attempts at mediation. Prince Philip's letters reveal that his role as a mediator in Charles and Diana's marriage was far more complicated than anyone suspected. Although many viewed him as a stern, old-school figure, these recently leaked messages illustrate how keen he was to restore harmony in a royal household teetering on the edge. In fact, his dealings with Diana were surprisingly considerate, given his reputation for bluntness. From the start, Philip knew Camilla Parker Bowles stood in the middle of everything. Diana, feeling spurned by Charles's fixation on Camilla, found few allies within the royal family. Yet, Philip's letters show he recognized that Diana was overwhelmed and isolated. He firmly believed that if both sides communicated more honestly, maybe the marriage could be saved. At times, Philip's advice to Diana was unapologetically direct. He did not shy away from criticizing his own son for endangering the monarchy's moral authority through his ongoing relationship with Camilla. Philip hoped these frank opinions might jolt Charles into seeing the damage being done, both to Diana's well-being and to the crown's reputation. He also urged Diana to keep the focus on her children, Princes William and Harry, and not let media chaos consume the boys' childhood. Still, Philip's mediation efforts collided with strong personalities and deep-seated mistrust. Diana's heartbreak ran too deep, and Charles, according to these letters, was unwilling to end his emotional reliance on Camilla. Though Philip held out hope that his blunt perspective and fatherly guidance would bring the couple back together, events quickly spun out of control. The more Charles leaned on Camilla, the more Diana felt betrayed, not just by her husband, but by the traditions that seemed to shield him. Philip tried to protect the monarchy by urging both parties to respect their duties. Yet, the effect was limited. Diana, finding her pleas brushed aside, turned increasingly to the press, further fanning public interest in the scandal. Philip's attempts at mediation reveal a grandfather, father, and royal consort caught in the middle of a painful collision of love, duty, and tradition. His desperate letters were not only designed to patch up a fractured marriage, but also to safeguard the monarchy's public image. Although his efforts could not prevent Charles and Diana's eventual divorce, they remain a testament to Philip's desire to hold the family together while preserving its centuries-old legacy, despite Camilla's undeniable role in the drama. Implications of Charles wanting Diana. Rumors about King Charles wanting Diana out of the way have always been at the heart of conspiracy chatter. But now, Prince Philip's leaked letters have reignited those claims with dramatic force. In these private notes, Philip reveals Diana's deep fears and suggests Charles's ongoing connection to Camilla Parker Bowles played a huge part in the tension. Though there's no official proof Charles hatched any plan against Diana, even the hint of such intentions casts a long shadow over royal history. Philip's letters indicate Diana felt increasingly unsafe in her final years, worried that Charles's frustration and the media circus would push him to desperate measures. Observers believe these fears weren't mere paranoia. The royals, after all, were navigating a tumultuous marriage crisis while juggling a very public image. With Camilla forever in the background, Diana's concern that Charles might want her gone, as the letters seem to imply, added an unsettling dimension to their already fraught relationship. Critics argue no direct link exists between Charles and Diana's tragic passing in 1997. Official investigations blame a fatal car crash, paparazzi pursuit, and a driver under the influence. Yet the leaked letters stoke decades-old whispers that Charles saw Diana as a roadblock to his future with Camilla. Whether or not there was any real plot, the letters confirmed Diana truly worried that forces close to Charles could harm her. Prince Philip evidently took her concerns seriously enough to acknowledge them in writing. Such revelations raise pressing questions. Were Diana's fears fueled by actual threats, or did she feel cornered by a family that didn't want her shaking up centuries of guarded tradition? The monarchy has always prized discretion and unity. A high-profile divorce, plus Diana's tell-all interviews, put them under enormous pressure. If Charles did harbor resentment, it might have come from the non-stop media frenzy and Diana's extraordinary popularity, both of which clashed with his desire for a stable, orderly future. Warnings about media frenzy. When Prince Philip's private letters just leaked the whole damn thing about Camilla, the world focused on the explosive claims about Charles and Diana. Yet, there was another thread running through these secret exchanges: urgent warnings about a looming media frenzy. Philip understood better than most how the public's appetite for royal drama could spiral out of control, causing huge fallout for everyone involved. His blunt messages reflect both frustration and foresight, revealing that he anticipated the press would seize any scandalous detail and blow it sky high. From the early days of Charles and Diana's courtship, headlines projected an idyllic fairy tale romance. But once cracks emerged in their marriage, especially Camilla's enduring presence, tabloids went into overdrive. Diana's personal struggles, coupled with Charles's reluctance to let Camilla go, gave hungry reporters endless fodder. In his letters, Philip repeatedly cautioned both Diana and Charles that once the media caught wind of their marital problems, controlling the narrative would be nearly impossible. He also worried that the relentless spotlight would damage the royal family's reputation far beyond a single scandal. With the monarchy dependent on public goodwill, Philip saw a clear connection between privacy and longevity. The letters reveal him urging Diana to avoid fueling rumors, while likewise warning Charles that open displays of affection with Camilla, no matter how innocent, would become prime tabloid material. He predicted the disastrous cycle of rumor and rebuttal that would eventually consume the Windsors. This media mania didn't just hurt Charles and Diana, it affected William and Harry too. Philip's letters expressed concern that the boys would grow up in a world where cameras followed their every move, magnifying every family dispute for newspaper sales. The more tension within the palace, the bigger the headlines, and the less chance the children had of finding normalcy. He wanted both parents to protect their sons, reminding them that every public misstep would soon be front-page news. Ultimately, Philip's warnings about the press proved all too accurate. Diana, feeling unheard and isolated, gave her famous Panorama interview, which unleashed even more media scrutiny. Meanwhile, Charles faced endless criticism for his bond with Camilla, stoking gossip about conspiracies and hidden agendas. It was the exact storm Prince Philip had cautioned against, where private heartbreak was laid bare for an audience hungry for scandal. Today, his leaked letters stand as a testament to the royal family's struggles with a media machine that never stops, always watching, always hungry for the next headline. Focus on William and Harry. When discussing Prince Philip's private letters, those that supposedly just leaked the whole damn thing about Camilla, it's impossible to overlook how much he worried about William and Harry. Throughout those tense years, the two young princes stood at the center of a storm they never asked for. Their parents' messy relationship and Charles's continued closeness with Camilla became front-page news, whether they liked it or not. Prince Philip's correspondence reveals a grandfather genuinely anxious about the emotional consequences all this chaos could inflict on the boys. From the beginning, William and Harry were forced into a spotlight brighter than most celebrity children face. The media fascination with Diana, who was already dubbed the People's Princess, meant every trip to school, every family holiday, and every small milestone was photographed, dissected, and debated. In his secret letters, Philip cautioned about the long-term harm this invasive attention could cause. He repeatedly urged both Charles and Diana to protect their children from an unrelenting press. There was no point in trying to completely hide the boys from public life. They were royals after all. But Philip believed strongly in drawing firm boundaries to maintain some semblance of normalcy. After all, William and Harry were dealing with more than just paparazzi. They were struggling through family tensions as their parents drifted apart. Philip's letters make clear he recognized how damaging it is for children when mom and dad argue, especially under the watchful eye of an entire nation. He worried that the situation, particularly Charles's bond with Camilla, undermined William and Harry's sense of security at a time they needed it most. When Diana's emotional woes spilled into the public sphere, Philip urged her to confide in people she trusted while shielding her boys from the worst of it. Meanwhile, he implored Charles to be mindful of keeping Camilla out of the spotlight, so that William and Harry could have something resembling a normal childhood. Tension, triumphing over tradition. Prince Philip's supposedly leaked letters have pulled back the curtain on a royal drama rarely seen so openly. At the heart of it is Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman whose quiet, persistent presence challenged centuries of royal custom. For Prince Charles and Princess Diana, life in the public eye was already intense. Still, add Prince Philip's strong opinions and dismay over his son's choices, and the scene took a dramatic turn. Cracks in the royal foundation were growing too large to hide. For decades, tradition guided the royals' every move, from public duty to private behavior. But as Charles refused to cut ties with Camilla, the strain on his marriage to Diana became impossible to ignore. According to Philip's revealed letters, he believed it was silly and short-sighted for Charles to risk irreparable harm to the monarchy with an emotional affair everyone sensed, if not fully saw, in plain sight. At risk was not only the fairy tale image of the young Princess of Wales, but also the long-standing notion that royal marriages, once sealed with ceremony, must endure quietly for the sake of tradition. Diana's heartbreak laid bare her desire for intimacy in a family that prized stiff upper lips. She felt emotionally abandoned, trapped in a world that judged her slightest misstep. Philip, though often described as no-nonsense, expressed surprising empathy in his letters, recognizing that her suffering was rooted in more than just media intrusion. He knew the monarchy's carefully crafted facade was shattering, revealing raw emotions behind palace walls. Yet the conflicting personalities and loyalties within the royal household made reconciliation impossible. Charles was torn between duty and a woman the public viewed as the other. Diana, feeling both unloved and unheard, began stepping outside traditional bounds by speaking openly with the press. Suddenly, royal secrecy clashed with modern transparency, ripping the family's carefully preserved mystique to shreds. Even with Philip trying to mediate, the tension soared, ultimately overpowering the monarchy's storied culture of quiet endurance. The fairy tale facade shattered. When Charles and Diana first stepped into the public eye as a couple, the world saw nothing but fairy tale magic. She was young, shy, and beautiful. He was the dashing heir to the throne. Their lavish wedding in 1981 appeared to confirm the fantasy 750 million people around the globe watched in awe, convinced that this royal union would symbolize hope and romance for generations. Yet behind the glossy headlines and glittering gowns lay a reality far darker than anyone suspected. Recently leaked letters from Prince Philip, letters that just leaked the whole damn thing about Camilla, have cast new light on just how fragile that fairy tale image truly was. From the beginning, Charles's attachment to Camilla Parker Bowles made Diana uneasy. These letters hint that Philip himself was aware of how Charles's ongoing contact with Camilla could unravel the entire carefully choreographed image the palace worked so hard to maintain. The public, meanwhile, hungered for every detail of the new princess's life, unknowingly fueling an ever-growing media frenzy. As time went on, Diana felt the crushing weight of royal expectations and the stifling formality that came with them. Inside Buckingham Palace, it became clear that the dreamlike story crafted for the cameras never quite aligned with real life. Charles, for his part, faced his own struggles. Pressured to marry and produce heirs, he may not have been prepared, emotionally or otherwise, for a union with someone he barely knew. With Camilla's influence still in the picture, his focus drifted, and Diana felt more alone than ever. Prince Philip's private letters, as revealed in these leaks, underscore how seriously he took the growing crisis. He tried to mediate, scolding Charles for risking everything by not letting go of Camilla, and showing surprising sympathy toward Diana's isolation. In public, the royal machine continued to project glamour and harmony. But behind closed doors, the strain of false perfection only grew. Diana struggled with her mental health, and the press, always pungent and prying, capitalized on every slip of her composure. The revelations, from Diana's candid interviews to the shocking new letters that confirmed Philip's own frustration, laid bare a marriage haunted by secrets and heartbreak. It became clear that the smiling photographs and grand processions were never the full story. What the world hailed as a storybook romance was, in fact, a fragile dream that splintered under the weight of betrayal, tradition, and a relentless spotlight. Lasting legacy of the letters. Even decades after Charles and Diana's tumultuous marriage made headlines, the secret letters from Prince Philip still spark fresh conversations about the true dynamics within the royal household. In these private writings, Philip appears both forceful and compassionate. He scolds Charles for carrying on with Camilla, but also sympathizes with Diana, aware she felt cornered by tradition and constant public attention. The fact that these letters now exist in the public eye has undeniably reshaped how we view the heartache at the center of the old fairy tale. For one thing, the letters underscore just how seriously Philip feared the impact of scandal on the monarchy. He understood the public had long treasured the royal family as a symbol of continuity. These private confessions show he worried that Charles's relationship with Camilla would shatter this carefully curated image. In writing to Diana, Philip tried to patch things up. He encouraged her to reconcile with Charles and preserve the monarchy's aura of stability. But behind that motive lay genuine warmth. He recognized Diana's struggles and wanted to spare her further suffering. This dual stance of fervent protectiveness for both the institution and its people remains one of the letter's most striking revelations. Over time, the letters have become part of Diana's broader legacy as well. They show a young princess under pressure from every angle, leaning on whomever would give her a lifeline. Her willingness to confide in Philip, and his willingness to write back, attest to a mutual belief that some semblance of family unity might still be salvaged. Indeed, the letters detail not only a marriage in crisis, but also a grandfatherly concern for William and Harry. Philip frequently reminds Diana that the boys deserve shelter from media storms. This protective instinct echoes long after Diana's death, fueling questions about how events might have turned out if family bonds had been stronger. Finally, these letters stand as a reminder that the people behind the crown have the same vulnerabilities as anyone else. They endure heartbreak, family disputes, and the burden of living in the public eye. Learning of Philip's blunt criticisms, as well as his sympathy, transforms him from distant patriarch to a father trying to do right by both his son and daughter-in-law. In that sense, the letters' legacy goes beyond finger-pointing. They encourage us to see the royals as individuals caught in an extraordinary web of duty, love, and tradition, where personal hope sometimes clashes with the unyielding demands of the crown.